Okay, I'm going to go through within the next 45 minutes, 3 sets of slides. It's going to be a bit faster, but the idea is to tell you the information is available. So the 3 sets of slides is this. I'm going to go through, if you were to run a crisis management, I'm going to do a mental walkthrough with you. What do you need to do before, during, and after? So the first set of slides will be before, the next set of slides will be during, which is much longer, and after will be much shorter. Okay, then we will call this session to adjourn. Okay. So remember just now one of the pre-reading, what are 3 stages? The bad news is this, to the management, they only know pre-crisis, crisis, and post-crisis. If you have a BCM team running back to you, you have the 6 R, remember? Reduce, response, recover, resume, restore, and return home. Your job as a management, I don't care about whether you're recovering, resume, restore, I don't care. It's just crisis. So your job is to tie in with the BCM manager to make sure that this is synchronized in the organization, which the management doesn't care. Okay, so this is something that is a good takeaway, which you have to do alignment now, peacetime. So when do you cut over to next, when management cuts over to crisis mode, where are you in your BCP? Because BCP team is always aligned to a crisis management team if there is a disaster. What are things you have to do before this? So we are doing pre-crisis, and most of you should have some form of coding. The Americans like red, amber, green, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The British likes gold, silver, bronze. Okay, in Asia we like color. Okay, red, amber, green. Okay, but it depends on who sets up the system and they decide what we want to do. Some people have 5 tiers. The 5 tiers tends to be a very big organization, and normally it's set up by military people because when you go to war, you have DEFCON 1 to 5, just for your information. That's how it works. So I think the tiering, I leave that to you, but the only consideration is when do you move from one tier to another tier. Look at what COVID-19 has done to Singapore. Are you aware that we actually went into red, but we didn't activate red? You notice that? Okay, because the whole team, the 2 ministers, Lawrence Wong and the other minister, is ready to press the button for red. But red definition is too harsh for Singapore. So what happened is at orange, they have to go to red. So what they do is they quickly redefine a new system, which is red, but called circuit breaker. Okay, so that actually, but if a true lockdown, we are going to close the whole city, including our port, by the way. Okay, so that's the reason why all these codes are useful, but the definition is very, very stringent for red, because we did not expect to move the rate, seriously. So the circuit breaker came in. Look at Malaysia. They changed the rate 3 times. They call them CMO. Then they call them CMCO. Then they come back with CMO again. Then they call it, the latest they have RMCO, RMCO, something like that. So what they are trying to do is they've gone to rate, but they are just trying to adjust rate. Or RMCO means CMCO means you cannot travel from one state to another state. Okay, so that's the CMCO. Then now MCMO means you can travel state to state. Okay, so all these are criteria are good. I like it because it is much clearer than the Indian concept of lockdown. 4 hours lockdown and what Philippines does, a lockdown. I don't know what the hell is a lockdown, serious. To me, a lockdown is I'm not going to go home to my home state or my province. So I better get out of my province. Okay, is transportation available? Is the train available? All these are very, very important. Look at what Singapore has done in terms of coding. Is the train available? Yes. Is the bus available? Yes. You know what I mean? But essential services will be available. So they are very clear, categorically, they are very clear in their definition. And that's what you guys have to learn from them. But when you hung out of time, you don't have time to think of it. So peacetime, please make sure your codings are done properly and be ready to adjust your codes. Like what the Singapore government has done, circuit breaker, MCMO, and so on and so forth. But most of the countries still call it lockdown. because they don't have a team that is that's strategic enough to really help the organization. Or the other problem is, no offense, sorry, Norman, back to your president. He shoots first, then he thinks he shoots first, then he says, okay, that's what happened. So the people behind are not able to follow through with his decision. Okay, reason is because he felt that that was the right decision to make, but the thing is, to make the decision, there must be a bureaucracy to support the decision, definition, transportation, and all these things must be available. But he just fired first. So India did the same thing, but India was no more knee-jerk because he has to stop everything from moving. And you know how many people died because of that, being run over by train. Because they were too tired, they slept on the train track and they get run over by train. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, these are the few concepts. For if you want to go in further, there's a few guys I want you to read. One guy is called Flink. Just remember him, Flink. These are all crisis management scientists, I call them. They are actually the people who started crisis management, and they wrote a lot of books about it. But I have all their books, by the way, and I find it very difficult to understand. If I'm corporate, I look at them, I say, oh shit, man. If I tell my CEO what's Prodoma and what, come on, they'll ask me to get out of my room. This is theory, man. Don't waste my time. Okay, so, but the theory behind what they are trying to say is very useful for us as practitioners. But we have to translate them to English. Okay, so Flink is one I like. Mixtov has been run for a long time. Okay, I like his literature, but again, very long-winded. So our job is to understand his thinking process. I like his thinking process, by the way, but it's too in-depth for a common person to understand. But it's very good for me to be one level higher than my all people that I'm helping. Okay, so Flink, so what I'm trying to explain to you is I'm trying to draw this picture and tell you what Flink is doing. The arrow is actually according to what Flink is doing, by the way. So this is just for your information, because after reading it, I felt that I don't want you guys to suffer like me, read and then try to understand and then try to align to this border. The second half of border is what we have taught you, but the top model is very difficult to align. Okay, so this is what I'll show. Mr. has the same thing, but the line drawn is before crisis. He has two things to do. Okay, that's what Mr. does. It's inside your handbook, by the way. Okay, so this picture is just something I've read his book in detail, and I felt that I should just save you the anger, save you the suffering of reading it by showing you that, so that you know that these two phases are reduction or pre-crisis. Okay, so what I'm going to do is quickly go through pre-crisis. Same thing, pre-crisis is what I've been telling. Get the structure up, get your system. When I say system, means what? Your command center operation system. Do you need equipment? Do you need monitoring? Do you need notifications, tools? What tools do you need? Or can I just run with Excel spreadsheet? Okay, I leave that to you. How people work within this structure, strategically and tactically. Okay, so on the onset, now remember, from a crisis management point of view, you have to do monitoring. It's a very different way of doing it. Compared to disaster. Disaster, you get hit by a bomb straight away, I know. But a crisis, for example, remember in early January and February, I used the American as example. The American felt that the virus outbreak in Wuhan would not go to the US. Okay, it's a very poor judgment call. On hindsight, of course, but between you and me, the Singapore has stepped up its level. Right, you notice that we have stepped up a level to level 2, and we start equipping all our hospital with additional PPE. Okay, but by doing that, what has happened is they actually suck out all the PPE from the Singapore economy. So there was something I'm speculating. So please don't quote me. I think what the government has done initially, which they are being criticized very badly now, is that they say don't wear mask is safe. I'm going to tell you what's the problem, in my opinion. We are short of masks. But if we choose to tell people to wear masks now, then at that point in time, the market will be running like it's hell break loose. There is not enough masks. Masks will have gone up 10 times the price and so on and so forth, right? You notice that? So they have made a decision, and to me, I respect them for that. But the problem is that they're being criticized very badly for making that decision. So that's what crisis management is all about. But unfortunately, it deals with politics. But I think that was the right decision. And what they start to do is give you disposable masks. Because the SARS virus is different from COVID-19 virus. A normal standard mask will protect you if you are 1 meter away or 2 meters away, right? So I think this is what I'm trying to say. On the onset, what are the equipment that the government has done, which is actually a mask. Then they start to bring sanitizer, they start to bring gloves and the gowns. You look at Singapore, we have never run out of gowns because we somehow or other, it took us 3 months to set up I understand that Temasek set up a mask making factory, by the way. Just for you, in Singapore, we have a mask making factory set up by ST. So that controls the supply, and we can manufacture about I can't remember, either 1 million or 5 million masks per day. Okay, so this is what I meant by it. We have to build capacity, but it takes us time to build. Then how does this crisis occur? You start to speculate, because crisis normally will be slow and steady coming in. So the Wuhan virus is the classic example. You have to step up. Then if it doesn't happen to us, then step down. Doesn't matter. Stand down. But you have to monitor. And then what is the impact if it happens to Singapore, example? So this is a classic example of what I meant by how are you going to handle this if it comes to Singapore? Sure. So there are people who does scenario planning now, like what Flings does. Actually, you sense, you build intelligence, you sense, you want to know more about the virus. But a lot of like the Americans, they went to full denial. They say, no, it's a Chinese virus. So China virus. So you stay in China. Okay. Okay. So what's the impact? The other thing is, these are a few questions you ask yourself. What does the how does it affect our impact? Again, how can do we have enough equipment and structure to perform it? What happened, what to be done. So I'm going to leave this to your reading. Okay, the last part is, of course, the third session I'm going to do here is how do we come back to normalcy? Okay, post-COVID, we are not coming back to normalcy. I will tell you, we're coming back to a new normal. The new normal, we will be standing 1 meter behind everybody for next 18 months. We'll be wearing masks for a long, long time. And when you go back to office, you make sure your colleagues is 1 meter away. And when you go for lunch, there's only about 5 persons in a table. And you should go in a group of the people that you engage for the day and the whole day, and not with another group, which a lot of people are now mixing and matching your colleagues when you go back to lunch. Okay, actually, this is some of the protocols that has to be adopted. Okay, this is how we will do in the crisis management team, pre-crisis, post-crisis. What are the things you do? So I'm just giving you notes and ideas of what you can think of. What are the stages? How do you get the initial notification? What is your immediate action? How do you mobilize the first CM team when the first COVID-19 hits the ground in Singapore? Okay, how do you return to normal? Okay, so basically I've just gone through what are the 3 types of crisis. Remember, for you guys, if you want to know in depth, there's an article called The Stages of the 3 Crises. Just read it. It's a very lecture reading. The only thing I want to improve on my reading is I want to tell you this reading. After reading, I tell you this is 8 minutes read. This is a 3 minutes read. That helps a lot. I'm going to do that. I'm going to read the whole article one more time and then see how many minutes to read. So at least when you are going to pre-reading, you have 3 minutes window. I will read this article first. I'll read the article first. That's something which I learned from other portals. Okay, so how do you reduce? Reduction is how do you prevent, and so on and so forth, like stocking up of PPE. Okay, who should have more PPEs, higher level of PPEs? For example, the receptionist will be it. Anyone who contacts the customer who are not within the office. All these are all your preventive measure. How do you reduce it? Cleaning. How do you shorten the period disruption? In this case, nothing you can do. What we are going to do is called a pandemic preparedness mode for a long, long way. So every morning you clean your table, you rotate your staff and all these things. This is going to be the norm in pandemic, in COVID-19. So what I'm trying to emphasize to you is this: when we go into crisis mode, just bear in mind, COVID-19 in 18 months will still be around, but it's going to be a business as usual to you. You can understand what I'm trying to say. So don't always assume that we are in crisis mode. Huh? It's going to be business as usual because everybody will know how to queue within 1 meter behind. Everybody will wear masks and everybody will clean their hands, wash their hands, and so on and so forth. If that happens to every majority of everybody in the world, it's no longer a crisis. It's called a normal day. Clear? So that is why I mentioned where in the morning, in early part of the session, to tell you that the new normal will mean the end of the crisis. Nothing you and I can do except to live with a bad cold. Okay. The other thing what you need to do is what I've gone through: develop a CM response plan, which you guys have developed. Huh? You guys have developed, but take the same module 2 and develop more and more crisis plan. Okay, and also develop some form of color coding. And what I would do if I were you, for some of you, is this: after this course, the colors are the same, but the boundary between the yellow to the sometimes I don't like yellow, I like green. But a lot of people say there won't be green anymore. There's green means why are we doing the plan? So let's say yellow to amber. What is this line? What differentiates from yellow to amber? It's something that we do not do very well as a crisis management person. Okay, you need to tell me where does this line comes in. Okay, which is a very difficult decision. And every crisis has a different yellow and amber. When someone died, when someone get killed, when someone hospitalized, that's the line that you need to draw. Okay, when my organization is closed, that's the line you draw as a yellow to amber or amber to red. Okay, next we have a team structure, and for big companies, we have red and blue team. Basically, they switch. In a lot of companies now, COVID-19, I don't think we have the luxury to have an A-B team. Okay, so my advice to you is we will put someone on duty, but the team is still the same, and then that's it. So what I would do is I will roster a senior management for the week. Okay, because he is going to pick up any call that's going to come on, and he will make the decision on your behalf, on the organization behalf, appointed by the head of CMT. That will be what I will do, and then he has a backup. So what happens is he's very conscious. Senior management, normally after 11, I don't pick up my phone anymore. But your job is to make sure that they pick up a phone and you have someone to talk to if you are running a command center. Okay, then what are the recovery strategy for each of the color code according to the crisis itself? So what I teach is color code, but what you have your system, the only thing you need to do is go back after the course, go back and relook at it, and the only thing always having we have a problem is that line between yellow and amber, or tier 1 to tier 2. That line, management is unable to evolve, to move to the next level because they want to stick on to one. Or some management likes to move as fast as possible because a second tier activation requires very stringent implementation. And I was joking the other day, you know, Singaporean with kiasu, kiasi and all this. A lot of management don't know what to do. They just want to escalate up. And escalation caused a lot of problem to organization. So this portion, we have to advise the management. This is the impact if you make that call. So sometimes doesn't mean, like example, in the private sector, I tend to escalate ahead of the government. Just to share with you why I escalate ahead of government, because the government has to follow this consultative approach with every agency before they start, right? And that delays 4 hours of my time. So the moment I sense something is wrong, I will activate first. I give example. A few clients call me and ask me, Dr. Goh, are we ready for orange? Remember when we were moving from DOSCON yellow to orange, remember? Client told me and say, my management is now squeezing me to move into orange now. Okay, but the government has not moved. So what he asked me, what should be our decision? I say, how can I ask an outsider what is this? But anyway, the long story short is this: I actually told them to move into orange now. Based on his scenario, I can move orange now, and they move orange about 4 to 6, most of them 4 to 6 hours ahead of the Singapore government. I tell you what's the implication. We got our mask first. Okay, we got our mask first. You'll be surprised. So this is something that that once you move to orange, automatically your PPE comes on and all these things. But I'm ahead of you in the curve. We went out and calculate 3 months worth of masks, we purchased the mask. Okay, so that's something that that came out from this discussion. Okay, here's where you develop a plan, you document a plan, we have done it. Okay, so the templates that I've given you is not the best template, but generally it has the content of crisis management, the overflow, everything is there, the call tree and command center and all these things. Okay, so we have just finished the first session.